Let's move on to the worldwide coronavirus fascism that appears to have arrived. Now, there were massive protests across the world. This is the protest in London that you can see. There's just tens of thousands of people stretching off into the distance. No coverage. You wouldn't have known this if you were just watching the BBC or ITV or Sky News or whatever. This massive, and it was all across the UK. So it was, Bristol, Cardiff, all up and down the country. We're going to have a video put out of because we had a bunch of people going there and filming stuff and interviewing people. So we're going to get a video about that put out at some point in the next few days. But anyway, this upset the Führer of Wales, Mark Drakeford, because apparently some anti-lockdown protesters had protested outside of his home, and he was like, "That's crossing a line." Locking people in their houses, not crossing a line. Thinking about having a curfew for men, not crossing the line. Protesting an elected leader who's taken on dictatorial powers, that's crossing a line. He complained, one of his fellow party members complained that this amounted to bullying.
Okay. No, the public are bullying me.
The public are bullying me because I keep them locked in their homes.
Oh, God. Is he going to turn around and say all the mean comments he gets online justify censoring them as well?
I imagine that he's going to get to that. This is apparently a favourite tactic of the far right in America. When? When has that happened? I mean, I suppose they did go to Pelosi's house, didn't they?
They also went to
Tucker Carlson's house, yeah.
Mayor Ted Wheeler's house as well.
That's right. Yeah, the Antifa went to Ted Wheeler's house. They also
set fire to it.
Yeah, they went to Tucker Carlson's house. He's not even a politician, but why not? Anyway, moving on.
Where is his house? Is it near central Cardiff or something? Or what?
Yeah, his home is in Cardiff. So.
Right. Well, is it an officialdom kind of place, like Number 10 or what?
I imagine it probably is, but I'm not sure. But anyway, moving on. Australia has gone into lockdown over 5 cases. This happened a few days ago. So next one, if you can, John. South Australia, entered lockdown after health authorities confirmed the state's outbreak is the Delta strain. The Delta strain, if you remember, has symptoms that can be described basically as being the common cold. You might get sniffles, sore throat, and a headache.
You may die. Like if you're in your 80s and whatnot.
Well, yeah, but that's the same from any disease.
Sure.
When you arrive in your 80s, you get a disease, there's a risk of death. But the lockdown is lasting for a week in South Australia because the 5th case was identified in a diner, and that was it. Man came from Argentina, entire state lockdown. 5 cases. This is an interesting way that the Australian authorities appear to be looking at this. Have a watch of this clip.
I think early next year we'll be in the phase of chasing up people who haven't come forward to get their vaccination or have missed their bookings and so on. So everyone will be able to get a vaccine between now and the end of the year. But of course, and I want every New Zealander to come forward, but human behaviour suggests that there will be some people that we have to actually really go out and look for, and some of that may spill into next year. But our commitment is everyone will have the opportunity to get the vaccine by the end of the year. Everyone will, but I can't say that, that we're not going to have some hesitant people or some people who just haven't come forward that we don't have to go out and find next year.
Sorry, that was New Zealand, not Australia. But it seems that...
What is wrong with Down Under?
Well, that's a great question, isn't it? New Zealand's been in a phenomenal tyranny for quite some time now. But at least people aren't dying of a disease that most people recover from. Anyway,
I don't mean Canada's that cooked.
No, but anyway, this is a clip from Australia that was going around in Sydney. You can see massive protests, again, not reported anywhere as far as I've seen. I've had to find all of these from social media. Although the Australian authorities did reassure everyone that the police are going through the footage, you can go to the next one, and are going to hunt down the people who are part of it. Sorry, I must have put that link on afterwards, John. But yeah, so the Australian authorities, the police are going through all the footage that they got from the protests in order to find people and charge them. They've vowed to identify and charge as many people as possible.
For protesting.
For protesting against being tyrannised by a tyrannical government. And they're like, yeah, we're going to get you for that.
I mean, you couldn't prove their point faster, but also, what the hell is wrong with Australia?
Don't know. Same as New Zealand. The authorities have, right, we're going to hunt you down and vaccinate you. And if you protest, we're going to hunt you down and charge you. I'm sick of being hunted down by the government. That's how I'd feel if I were in Australia. I just want to point out that a few years ago, the Australians did give up their guns. I hate to give
the
credence to
buyback program.
I hate to give credence to the NRA's narrative on that.
No, the NRA right.
But they do
100%.
seem to be right about this.
Where's our guns?
Yep.
They're gone.
Yep.
Like a handful of people have them in the UK in shooting clubs and whatnot. That's about it.
But prepare to get hunted down and vaccinated against your will, because your body, your choice. Anyway, in France, the New York Times did an excellent article about how the French are taking the lead when it comes to coercion. Isn't that nice? Don't you want the government to coerce you? That's what everyone wants from their governments. Coercion. So Macron is leading the way down a narrow path, combining limited compulsion to get vaccinated with widespread coercion. New York Times' words.
That wording there, though. France is taking the lead in making life unpleasant for the unvaccinated.
Yes.
That's not a normal thing to do.
Yes. The government is actively targeting sectors of its own population to make their lives miserable. That's what's happening in France. His approach of ordering health workers to get vaccinated by September the 15th and telling the rest of the French population they will be denied access to most indoor public venues if unvaccinated or without a negative test by August the 1st has prompted other countries, including Italy, to follow suit, even though it's stirred deep pockets of resistance. Barreling through 1,200 proposed amendments defying accusations of authoritarianism and chaos from the hard right and then just the left. So hard right, don't want to be tyrannized. Evil, evil. The left, the cuddly, nice left, it's just the left, just nothing to do with it. They all agree that that's bad. But the lower house voted 117 to 86 to back Macron's attempt to strong-arm the French to get vaccinated by making, quote, their lives miserable if they do not. Great. My government's going to try and make my life miserable. Just what I wanted. Brilliant.
I mean, they say that's not the purpose of the government, but the more I think about it, kind of is. What does the government do that isn't just making people...
It does that anyway, so what's new, you know? It's just another day ending in Y.
But there we go. It's like the French government, that's our main objective. We're going to say it openly.
Yes.
Like, we're here to make life miserable.
Yes. So the New York Times is presenting the lie that Europe's problem is that similar to that of the United States. Vaccination levels around just under 60% are inadequate for herd immunity. It's not what herd immunity means. Herd immunity can be done in the absence of vaccines. Herd immunity just means most of the population have been exposed to the virus and don't fall sick from it because they have antibodies circulating.
I think there's a specific percentage you want to aim for statistically, and it's about 80 to 90% or something like that. But you can get it from the vaccines and, of course, people just getting the virus.
Sure, but
I saw some data recently because they're complaining about like the youth in the UK not being vaccinated.
Yeah.
But the government said that, what was it, 9 out of 10 have the antibodies?
Yeah.
It was like...
So that's herd immunity.
That's a vaccine without the vaccine.
Well, that's the point. Herd immunity vaccines are not necessary for herd immunity. They're not a necessary component of it. But the New York Times, of course, is lying to people and acting as if they are. In the United States, has not generally gone beyond hospitals and major health systems requiring COVID-19 vaccines. Major European economies, including France and Italy, I love the way they frame them as just European economies. They're not countries, they're economies, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
They're moving closer to making vaccines mandatory for everyone. Mario Draghi, the Italian Prime Minister, followed the French example. He did not pull his punches in announcing similar measures this week. The appeal to not getting vaccinated is an appeal to die. Mad. Absolutely mad, right? The resistance to vaccination could also kill others, he noted. Right. So if I don't get vaccinated, then I'm a threat to people who are vaccinated, even though the vaccine is meant to protect them from falling ill from COVID.
Like, what's your problem? Why can't it be each to their own?
Yeah. The people with the vaccine are surely not at risk of COVID. Even if they can get it, which they can, it's meaning they're prevented from becoming hospitalized, which it seems to be, at least if we just go from the hospitalization numbers, and it's certainly preventing them from dying en masse, as we can see from the death numbers.
So if it's not a threat to them, you could be saying, well, it's a threat to the unvaccinated, but if they've chosen not to, that's their choice. They know the risks.
Yeah, exactly. What are you supposed to do? But anyway, massive protests against this in France. Huge protests in France. I mean, just look at the scope of this. This is in Paris. This is one city in Paris. One city in France, sorry. Anyway, what do you think the Germans are going to be like on this?
Nothing. I'm calling it.
No, Merkel's hinting at vaccine passports, obviously.
I meant no protesting.
Oh, well, no. Well, actually, yeah, good point. I couldn't find any. I looked for protests in different countries. I couldn't find any German protests. Yeah, I'm not saying there weren't any. I'm just saying there weren't any reported. Anyway, so the Germans are going to prevent unvaccinated people from going to cinemas, restaurants, and football matches. Merkel's chief of staff said as protests against COVID passport schemes spread across France and Italy. Again, not in Germany, as far as I'm aware. But Merkel ruled out French-style mandatory immunization of health workers, but appears increasingly likely to impose stricter rules against those who decline the jab, because the Germans have learned nothing. When the state starts targeting portions of the population, that starts to look bad and historically hasn't aged well in Germany, at least. I mean, I don't know whether I need to use the N-word. Do I, my dear German friends? Helga Braun. God, that's sounding into that's good name. Good name.
I'm sorry, Germans.
you really should. You should be incredibly libertarian about all of this. Just saying, right? Said there would be no need for a classic lockdown. Ah, yes, we're on to lockdown classics.
Lockdown classic.
No, this isn't a traditional lockdown. This is a new lockdown. But there would have to be a toughening of the measures if the numbers continue to rise. The vaccinated certainly will have more liberties than the unvaccinated. Braun told Bild. That's right. The Aryans certainly will have more liberties than the Jew. It's just how it works in Germany, isn't it?
Second-class citizenship is not a desirable thing to do.
I mean, unironically, they should have got some of the German announcements where Jews weren't allowed to go to restaurants and things like this. This could mean visits to restaurants, cinemas, or stadiums would no longer be possible for unvaccinated people, even if they've been tested, because the residual risk is too great. Because those people who have been vaccinated, apparently at risk. But the most shocking form of vaccine fascism that we could see around the world was from Israel, of all places, where the new prime minister, whose name I've forgotten offhand, which I tell you what, man, it makes me miss Netanyahu, because he didn't say this. He's going to require all Israelis to carry vaccination papers if they wish to participate in any social activity that involves more than 100 people, such as going to a cinema, a sports game, or a synagogue. Preventing certain Jews from going to synagogues doesn't sound good to me. Sounds pretty bad. All Israelis will be required to either provide a vaccination certificate or a negative test result at their own expense whenever the authorities demand papers, please. We'll play the clip. It's about 2 minutes long, and unfortunately it's in foreign. So if you're listening, you won't be able to hear it. But I just want your reaction, Callum.
Subtitle.
אבל עדיין יש מעל 600,000 צעירים עד גיל 30 שעוד לא התחסנו. אני מכבד דעות שונות, אבל יש רגע ויש מקום שבו הדיון הזה צריך לעצור, והוא עצם החיים של כולנו. המדע הוא חד וברור. החיסונים עובדים, הם יעילים ובטוחים. לצעירים באופן כמעט מוחלט, למבוגרים הם יעילים אבל לא מספקים. מעל מיליארד אנשים בעולם כבר התחסנו. אזרחים יקרים, סרבני החיסונים מסכנים את בריאותם, את סביבתם ואת החופש של כל אזרחי ישראל. הם מסכנים את החופש שלנו לעבוד, את החופש של ילדינו ללמוד, החופש לחגוג שמחות עם המשפחה. סרבני החיסונים פוגעים בכולנו. כי אם כולם יתחסנו, כולם יוכלו לקיים את שגרת חייהם. אבל אם מיליון ישראלים ימשיכו לא להתחסן, זה יאלץ את 8 מיליון האחרים בסוף להסתגר בבתים שלהם. לכן הקבינט קיבל היום החלטה שהחל מה-8 באוגוסט סרבן חיסון לא יוכל להיכנס לקולנוע, לתיאטרון, לבית הכנסת, ללונה פארק, למשחק כדורגל או לכל פעילות מעל 100 איש בפנים או בחוץ, אלא אם הוא יביא בדיקת קורונה שלילית על חשבונו. כן, הוא יישא במלוא עלות הבדיקה. אין שום סיבה שמשלמי המיסים והאנשים שכן מקיימים את חובתם האזרחית להתחסן יממנו בדיקות למי שמסרב להתחסן. בתחום הטיסות, המחוסנים יוכלו לטוס למדינות הנקיות ולחזור, ולאחר קבלת תוצאות בדיקת הקורונה בישראל, הם יהיו פטורים מבידוד. אך לעומתם, מי שמסרבים להתחסן, ייכנסו לבידוד של שבוע מכל מדינה שיחזרו ממנה. הפעולות הללו יסייעו לבלום את התחלואה. אני פונה מכאן לכל מי שמכיר סרבן חיסון. שכנעו אותו, תסבירו לו, שלא יפגע באחרים, תשכנעו אותה, תסבירו לה, אל תוותרו.
I mean, this just seems like Nazism to me.
The nutsness of him being like, yeah, if you get the vaccine, Because, again, the problem overwhelmingly is not that the elderly haven't done it. The elderly have done it because it's worthwhile for them. The young people is the universal complaint here. The 18 to 24-year-old group, let's say. It's how we usually do that. And it's the point of just like, well, there's a reason they're not taking it up because it's not worth the risk to them, they don't think.
Yep.
Because the chance of death is extremely minute. And then the discussions in the UK about it being under 16s getting vaccinated, it's even smaller.
Yeah.
I wonder what the statistical analysis is of actually the risk of getting it versus not getting it in regards to death rates.
Well, I don't think we'll ever see that data. But anyway, for the people listening very quickly, dear citizens, those who refuse vaccines are endangering their health, those around them, and the freedom of every Israeli citizen. They're endangering our freedom to work, the freedom of our citizens' children to study, the freedom to hold celebrations with our family. So those who refuse vaccines hurt us all, because if all of us were vaccinated, we would all be able to maintain daily life. And so because of 1 million Israelis continue not to get vaccinated, this obliges 8 million others to shut themselves in their homes.
And then he just goes on and on about the fact
yeah.
that get it, or you're harming everyone else.
Yes, get it, or you're going to get persecuted by the state.
Yeah.
Again, it just seems that's just incredibly Nazi-ish to me. I can't stand these governments thinking, it's okay for us to persecute a percentage of our own population. That's a wrong. That's a bad thing. Anyway, so if you're wondering what you can do, write your elected representatives. I know it's boring and it doesn't sound very exciting, but seriously, look up whoever your local representative is, wherever you are, write them an email. They actually do respond to these emails, and the more emails that you send them, the more they will think the public view this as a pressing problem, because, of course, all of these things are about perception. Tweeting about it, posting YouTube videos about it, no good unless they're actually getting the inbox full of people saying, don't you dare do this, don't you dare do this, I'll vote for anyone else other than you.
I think I have seen a few emails of people doing that already. And yeah, there have been some good receptions from MPs being like, actually, yeah, I'm not sure about mandating papers, please.
Yes, and the more emails that they get, the more it looks like there is a massive public objection to this, because, of course, them receiving emails isn't that common. They don't get like stacks of emails on one subject usually, and when they do, that implies that there's a much wider public perception of unrest, and so make them think that they are on the wrong side of this issue because they are by getting in contact with them. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.